It's election crunch time this Sunday night. With the end in sight, party leaders are making big promises as they target battleground ridings.
We will build great careers in new industries.
I will cut the federal government's budget for consultants.
But the Conservatives still haven't released a full platform. Plus, the Pope's Easter appearance and plea for peace, his condemnation over the deplorable human situation in Gaza. And a matchup more than 2 decades in the making. The Leafs and Senators face off in a showdown that could reignite a rivalry.
Global National, reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It is crunch time on the campaign trail with just 8 days to go before Election Day. The finish line is in sight and party leaders are making their final pitches in ridings shaping up to be crucial battlegrounds. Elections Canada says nearly 2 million people cast a ballot on the first day of advance voting, a new record for voter turnout. So it's clear Canadians are more motivated than ever to make their voices heard. And a reminder, you have until tomorrow night to vote early. As voters weigh their options this holiday weekend, Liberal leader Mark Carney is back on the road pitching his fully costed platform. Mackenzie Gray begins our campaign coverage tonight. Mackenzie, it was a relatively quiet start for Mark Carney before diving back into full campaign mode.
Mark Carney took Sunday morning off the campaign trail, Neithu. He's a very religious man, went to church for Easter Sunday, but later in the afternoon he came to his suburban Ottawa riding for a rally.
As always for the Liberal leader, it all comes back to the Americans.
President Trump has ignited a trade war that is ruptured. No, we don't like Trump here. We don't like Trump here. Ruptured the global economy and changed forever our relationship with the United States.
That has been the consistent refrain from Mark Carney in the campaign, and today he's saying he wants to increase trade everywhere except the U.S.
We will build great careers in new industries and trade corridors with reliable partners in every corner of the world except South.
With advance voting now open, the home stretch for the campaign is now on. Carney has previously talked about needing a majority, but he's now tamping down those expectations.
Just imagine what the Liberal Party could do with a strong mandate back in Ottawa.
Carney also taking sides in another major issue in Ottawa, who he's cheering for in the playoff series between the Leafs and the Senators.
This is a national campaign, so I like Toronto too, but I'm sorry. I don't want to be accused of saying different things in different places, but go Sens go.
The pace of this Liberal campaign has been considerably slower compared to when Justin Trudeau was leader, Neithu, but expect that to change this week, with Carney set to go to Atlantic Canada, first stop Charlottetown, for a day and a half in the East Coast.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mackenzie. Both Conservative and NDP leaders spent the day campaigning in BC, a province where they see votes up for grabs. It's a particularly high-stakes region for the New Democrats, with half their incumbents based there. In Victoria, Jagmeet Singh promised to crack down on grocery chains, driving up prices on Canadian goods. He also had an Easter weekend message for progressive voters, urging them to stick with the NDP instead of shifting to the Liberals.
Yeah, you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. You shouldn't put all your power in one party. And we know that that's just how our country has worked best. All the great things in our country have happened when one party doesn't have all the power, and particularly at the same time when New Democrats are strong.
Polls suggest the NDP is losing support to Mark Carney's Liberals. Jagmeet Singh is pushing back, warning the Liberal platform includes $28 billion in cuts to programs and services. He says that won't do anything to help families struggling with rising costs. Tory leader Pierre Poilievre took aim at Mark Carney's platform today, campaigning in Surrey, BC. He slammed the Liberals' plan to spend $130 billion, claiming it would worsen deficits, fuel inflation, and make life more expensive. Poilievre also blamed the Liberals for soaring consultant costs, promising to cut that spending by $10 billion. But with just over a week to go, the Conservatives have yet to release a fully costed platform, though Poilievre says it's coming soon. Grace Key reports.
The only man who can stop Mark Carney, the leader of the Canada First Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre.
At a Fruitacana grocery store in Surrey, BC, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre tried to convince Canadians Liberals will only drive up the cost of living with $130 billion in new inflationary measures.
That the Liberals are re-elected, they will add, by their own numbers, $250 billion in extra inflationary debt, driving up your food, your housing, and everything you buy.
Poilievre is repeating his plan to axe what he calls the inflation tax by cutting waste, reducing taxes, foreign aid, handouts to corporate insiders, and consultants, something he says costs a family well over $1,000 in federal taxes.
I'm announcing today I will cut the federal government's budget for consultants by $10 billion, bringing it back to the level it was under Stephen Harper. $10 billion less for high-priced consultants means $10 billion less inflation, means $10 billion more affordable life for Canadians. What's driving it up?
Regulation, I think.
Yeah.
All there we go.
Poilievre spent part of the day decorating Easter eggs in Langley, BC, while speaking with a contractor. He says they'll remove anti-development laws that cap on energy production and fast-track priority resource projects. It's a plan that's expected to generate an extra $70 billion in tax revenue over the next 5 years.
If you want to fight inflation, if you want to have stronger purchasing power, instead of adding more cash, you need to add more of what cash buys. Build more homes, grow more food, and produce more energy. And that is what we will do.
With advanced voting underway, the Conservative leader has yet to announce how he plans to pay for some of his commitments. Grace Key, Global News, Surrey, BC.
Global's Richard Zussman also sat down with the Conservative leader for some added insight into his campaign promises. So, Richard, what are some of your takeaways from your interview?
It's a campaign, Neetu, where we've been hearing from Pierre Poilievre pretty much every single day for 4 straight weeks. But when you have a one-on-one interview, you can actually get in deep on some of those policy issues. When it comes to housing, Poilievre says this has been one of the biggest failures of the Liberal government. And clearly, the Conservatives want to focus in on the private sector to build. At the same time, get those gatekeepers, as the Conservatives describe them, out of City Hall to speed up the process. Poilievre acknowledging that the country faces a significant challenge when it comes to the actual people who build homes. To address that, the Conservatives would increase apprenticeships. At the same time, they would change federal immigration policies to prioritize trade workers who want to come into this country.
We're going to be capping immigration. I will ensure that we never add people faster than we add homes. So the numbers target that I set for this year will always be lower than the number of homes that was built in the previous year. And we're going to target newcomers who have trade skills to build homes.
Poilievre also blaming the Liberals for an inability to build natural resource projects when pushed on concerns raised by Indigenous Canadians around the speed of which Conservatives want to push resources to market. Poilievre blames politicians and says he believes 80% of First Nations in this country want to work with the federal government to sign deals and build energy projects.
So most First Nations want these projects to go ahead. The problem is we have non-First Nation Liberal politicians who don't.
As for the question of whether you can trust that Poilievre will actually fulfill his promises, when I pressed him on that, he says he hasn't changed any of his positions over, in essence, the entirety of his adult life, unlike his Liberal opponent, Mark Carney.
This is like a long track record of standing for these things that I'm proposing to do now. It's not like I woke up the day before the election, started promising something.
We also chatted a little hockey with the Stanley Cup playoffs now underway. He says he's cheering for the Montreal Canadiens, Neetu. The reason? That's his wife's favorite team. Back to you.
All right, Richard Zussman in Victoria. Thanks, Richard. Party leaders are making a final push to win over last-minute undecided voters. Mercedes Stevenson has more on what to expect in this final week of the campaign. Mercedes?
Neithu, we are into the final week and potentially the most important one of this tightening race. The extraordinarily high early polling numbers we've seen over the weekend suggest voters are engaged and paying attention. Now it's up to the leaders to convince them to vote for them in this final week. For the campaigns, every vote counts, and all parties are going to be focused on a two-pronged strategy. One that you'll see unfolding on television in public, and one that will be happening behind the scenes. Out in front of the camera lenses, you're going to see leaders looking to project energy and convince voters they're the right man, and it is only men running this time, to be the Prime Minister of Canada. There's a large number of undecided voters who could swing either way, and they're going to be listening carefully to see what's on offer. The Liberals and NDP have released their costed platforms, and the Conservatives say theirs is coming soon. That means voters can finally kick the tires on all three parties to see how realistic those promises are. Now, behind the scenes is the second strategy that the campaigns will be executing. They're going to be working around the clock to lock in what's called the get out the vote. That ensures that decided voters make it to the polls to cast their ballot. The ground game here can be where campaigns are won or lost. And when it comes to the two main contenders, neither can afford to let up. What I expect to see in this coming week, well, Mark Carney has to project that prime ministerial image that the polls say work for him, focusing on being the man to lead Canada through tariffs and Trump, while assuring voters he's moving the Liberal Party to the centre. Pierre Poilievre needs to focus on change, hammering home the Liberals' record and arguing there's more to this election than just tariffs, and that Conservative policies will make voters' everyday lives better. That's what I expect to see this week on the campaign trail. Neithu?
All right, lots to come. Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa. Thanks, Mercedes. And we'll have full coverage of the federal election on Monday, April 28th. Watch Decision Canada live on election night, starting at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, right here on Global and on all our streaming platforms. A hiker is dead after falling several hundred meters down a BC mountain. It happened on Mount Seymour in North Vancouver. Rescue crews responded Saturday morning after a 28-year-old woman camping overnight with a friend dropped her cell phone and slipped while trying to retrieve it, falling to her death. Easter blessing coming up. The Pope delights the faithful, plus why tensions with the U.S. Vice President are also in the spotlight. Under a backdrop of war, Ukrainian troops marked Easter Sunday with prayers and ceremony. Russian President Vladimir Putin had declared a 30-hour Easter truce that was meant to end at midnight. But only hours in, both sides had already accused each other of breaking the ceasefire, with hundreds of attacks overnight and into today.
Що захищаємо, знаємо, за що боремось.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky posted this Easter video message to Ukrainians on social media today. He says, "Evil may have its hour, but God will have his day," urging citizens not to lose faith in each other as the war continues. He also says one day Ukrainians will be able to gather together again at one table on a peaceful Easter. Thousands gathered at the Vatican today for Easter and to pray for the continued recovery of Pope Francis. The 88-year-old wasn't at today's Mass, but gave a brief speech afterwards. The Pope was discharged from hospital nearly a month ago after being bedridden with double pneumonia. Nathaniel Dove reports.
With the faithful gathered, Pope Francis, leader of the Catholic Church, blessed the crowds
Buona Pasqua
and wished them happy Easter.
I come from Canada, so I'm just very grateful to see his address.
I hope he's better and gets better.
Francis spoke only briefly, still recovering from double pneumonia.
In Palestina e in Israele.
An aide read his speech, which called the situation in Gaza deplorable and urged peace in the Middle East and Ukraine.
So good to see you.
Francis also meeting with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. The two have clashed before. In January, the Pope called the American immigration crackdown a disgrace. Vance cited medieval Catholic doctrine to justify it. Francis rebutted the argument.
These are for your children.
The meeting lasted just a few minutes. A day before, Vance met Francis's chief aide.
The Vatican's position on relevant subjects will certainly have been put across, and it's likely that Vance will have listened and understood them, though he probably won't agree with them, and he's unlikely to act on them.
Expert Miles Pattenden says the church doesn't influence or direct Catholic world leaders like Vance, but says politics could be a reason for the vice president apparently trying to end the dispute.
It's probably bad for the Catholic vote in the United States, and so he also has strong incentives to try to be seen to be on friendly terms.
Politics blending with religion on the holiest day of the Christian calendar. Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
An Israeli investigation into the shooting deaths of 15 Palestinian medics by Israeli forces in Gaza has found a series of professional failures, and a deputy commander has been fired. The incident was captured on cell phone camera, and a warning: some viewers may find this video disturbing. The military investigation found the deputy battalion commander acted under the incorrect assumption that all of the ambulances belonged to Hamas militants. Israel had initially claimed the vehicles did not have emergency signals activated, but later backtracked when video surfaced showing otherwise. The bodies were buried in a mass grave and the ambulances were crushed, but Israel says there was no attempt to conceal the shootings. The Palestinian Red Crescent has called the killings a war crime. Ancient traditions. One of Europe's oldest ethnic minorities celebrates Easter with centuries of history. Next. Orthodox Christians in Greece started Easter with a bang. Rival churches fired thousands of homemade rockets at each other's bell towers in a tradition called the Rocket War, all while churchgoers attend Mass inside. The annual event used heavy cannons in the 19th century. It's since evolved to use much safer fireworks. And Germany's Sorb community wore costumes and sang carols to celebrate Easter. Sorbs are one of Europe's oldest and smallest minorities, and Easter is one of its biggest and most important holidays. About 60,000 Sorbs live in Germany, with only around 20,000 still speaking Sorbian, a language similar to Czech and Polish. Back in Canada, more than 500,000 Sikhs were in Surrey, BC Saturday for the country's largest Vaisakhi parade. Surrey streets were full of music, food stalls, and community spirit. Vaisakhi has deep-rooted religious and cultural significance for Sikhs. It marks the birth of the Khalsa in 1699, an order Sikhs live by promoting equality for all. It's also known as the beginning of the spring harvest season.
It's a really wonderful experience we are having with the kids and family. It's awesome.
Lots of crowd than last year, I guess. And the food is very, very good.
We are very proud to see all the community together. I love seeing people in different colors and cultural outfits.
Organizers say this year's edition had the largest turnout in the parade's 27-year history. Organizers estimate more than 600,000 people gathered for the annual celebration. A rivalry renewed. Next, the Leafs and Sens face off in their first playoff battle in more than 20 years. We'll tee it up.
Canadians want to be informed.
That's why more Canadians than ever are turning to Global News.
And accessing our local and national newscasts has never been easier.
It's the stories people are talking about.
From inside our communities.
Across the country and around the world.
Trusted journalism.
Trusted journalism.
Trusted journalism.
When and where you want it.
Stream Canada's most extensive news coverage.
Watch and follow Global News.
Canada got off on the right foot last night with the Winnipeg Jets soaring over the St. Louis Blues, winning the first game of the NHL playoffs. Tonight, it's the highly anticipated Battle of Ontario. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going head-to-head with longtime rivals, the Ottawa Senators. Global's Lexi Benedict is outside Scotiabank Arena, where all the action is taking place. Lexi, what's the energy like?
There is a sea of blue behind me at Toronto Maple Leaf Square, and as you can hear and see, there are plenty of fans that are fired up getting ready for Game 1 of the playoffs, where the Toronto Maple Leafs are going head-to-head with the Ottawa Senators for the first time in over 20 years, reigniting the Battle of Ontario. The last time the Leafs played the Ottawa Senators in a playoff series was in 2004 when the Leafs took home the win. This time they're favored again, although the Senators had the edge in the regular season, winning all 3 games they played, outscoring the Leafs 9-3 in those games. Ottawa is making its first playoff appearance in 8 years. We spoke with fans today who are definitely feeling hopeful. Many are really excited to watch history happen.
It's been a rivalry since I was born, before I was born even. And just growing up hearing the stories from my dad, I can't wait to see it in person here. So
I feel like the Leafs are going to make it pretty far in the playoffs this year. I think the new coach makes a difference too. Yeah, and they have a good lineup.
No predictions. I'm just really excited to watch the game. I hope they do well.
Now, many of these fans and players were just kids the last time these two teams were head-to-head. So experts say this is a chance for the next generation of both fans and players to kick off this next playoff run. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Lexi Benedict in Toronto for the big game. Thanks, Lexi. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. To celebrate Easter, tonight's Your Canada is this patriotic bunny in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Please keep sending your pictures of Canadian pride to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks so much for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great night.